I want to start talking about our solution that we have for our WMS, and then how we talk to logistic service providers, right? So, okay, maybe that was the first question. who is familiar with logistic service providers? I guess you are, right? So the concept is clear, right? So yeah, in this presentation, I will first talk a bit about Herbalife. Maybe you know the brand, maybe you don't know the brand. Then something about the fulfillment solution that we have, and anything that we further do, which is actually having a standard and actually talking about that further, right? Feel free to ask questions. It's a small group, so that's okay. Yeah. I mean, for Herbalife, yeah, we are wellness in wellness and food and industry company, right? So if you look at what we do, typically, I mean, we're a US-based company. We're founded in 1980, 5 billion revenue. Yeah, we have many locations, around 7,000 people. We produce our products, and typically it's 94 countries that we're in. So that's quite big, right? If you look at the product ranges, typically, so it's inner and outer nutrition. So we're in sports. We're actually also in weight management and supplements and skin, are things that you can use as well. But that's kind of the product line that we have. Now, what is specific about nutrition? It's actually always, it has an expiration date, it is lot, and it is retail, right? So that is very specific to our brand, like what you buy in the store. But then again, it is specific also for us. Maybe just a bit of background. I mean, we do things ourselves. So we do have our own manufacturing facilities. So we have our own plants where we make this is the Formula One that we have in the US. We have a tea plantation and also manufacturing in China. And typically we also have our own storage and DCs that we have. So the whole supply chain is typically managed by ourselves. Okay, maybe just also on general notes, what you see a lot lately in the industry for us, it's personalized nutrition, right? Which is that, something is there, but then again, based on anything that you wear nowadays, you can get personalized products. So we're moving into more, those kind of products. So it's not like a fixed product. It becomes a product that is, for your health, etc. That makes it also specific in the let's call it supply chain. Overview. So if you look at supply chain, because that's the topic today, right? The topic for us is more that, we ship a lot of orders. And the orders that we ship, it's 35 million worldwide. And typically compared to other e-commerce company, we're doing business to consumer orders. And typically, we have a lot of orders that go via pickup and access points, right? Because most of it is home delivery. So also, if you compare that on average, people that buy maybe on other platforms like Amazon, they buy 1 or 2 units. For us, it's 7 to 8 typically, right? So we have bigger orders, but multiples, right? So that's typically the difference. Of course, we are also very specific in local markets. So we're not the same. We don't have the same model everywhere, but that's specific per region. And of course, reliability, like what you expect from bigger retailers, is also that you need to be flexible on giving the service and being reliable there, right? This is the topic, right? So global logistics overview. So first, there is an overview of our supply chain. So typically we have to deal with these kind of different, let's call it things in our supply chain, right? So we are having manufacturing, DCs, customs, we have regional DCs, we have country-specific DCs, we have importers, right? So all play a role in our supply chain. And on the right side, you see more the way how we have pickup, meaning there is a sales center, so that we have our own stores, so you can go in, and of course, you can pick up your products, or you can have other things like automated sales centers, which is more the cabinets. And at the bottom three, we have delivery services, because typically our business is home address delivery. So it goes to your home address, or pickup points, or lockers nowadays, right? So just to give an overview, per region, if you look at the numbers, this is a kind of an average still, but if you look at points that have inventory in our supply chain, it's quite a lot, right? So we have more than 900 inventory points where we have our products, right? From bigger ones to smaller ones. If you look at the bottom, you can see that we have kind of 50 bigger DCs, distribution centers, which hold, let's call it a value of 1 million, of inventory value across the world, right? So that gives us actually a challenge, right?
Can I ask something here?
Of course.
And why is Mexico so big compared to the other locations?
Yeah, good question. In Mexico, we have a special case, because in Mexico, we are partnering with retail stores. So in Mexico, we're actually in specific retail stores. So that's why, that number is an inventory point, but it's like a store model, right? Okay. Even more than in the other countries, right?
I saw 500 warehouses in Mexico.
An inventory point for us is then also a store, and but only in Mexico we have that retail model combination where we work with them. But good point. But the challenge is to look at the bigger DCs and how we work with them, right? Here when we looked at this, maybe the details are not that much important, but if you look at how to work with the distribution centers, typically we classified warehousing that we have warehouses that do hundreds of orders, up to 200 orders, more than 200, 1,000 or 4,000 orders per day, right? So especially for the bottom ones, that's where the logistic service provider or the bigger DCs, and that's where you bring in technology or automation, right? That is the classification. So we do have a lot of inventory points that have manual kind of pick, pack, ship operations, but the bigger ones, can go up to 1,000 to 4,000 a day, or even 7,000, 10,000 orders per day, right? And these are the bigger fulfillment systems, and they need specific solutions. And of course, the units per hour, the productivity is important, right? To make sure that that we could work accordingly. Now, another thing to understand, maybe what is specific in our model, and it's not about the details of this overview, but maybe think about this. In the beginning, when we are getting an order, and typically we get orders via online, which is internet ordering, we're actually creating an order, booking an order. But for us, the thing is, of course, it's prepayments are done in advance because you need to pay the order, right? So that is already different than the other supply chain model. And furthermore, if you go then to, hey, it's fully paid, it's released, it's booked, and in the bottom you see the split, which is in the 3 different units. So that's where you see then, we have in-house DCs, there is the LSPs, and there is the retail chain, which is typically Mexico. And then you do a pickup, delivery, manifest, ship confirm, close the order via warehousing back into ERP again. That's kind of the traditional model that we have globally. Now, so talking about logistic service providers, right? we had, of course, a problem statement. And the problem statement was that if you work with logistic service providers, typically, we are part of a multi-customer environment there, and they all bring in their own WMSs, right, or their own standards. Now, one of the things that we said is that, first of all, when we work with you, we want to have clear segregation of duties of who does what, so that it's clear on who does certain operations. Secondly, we want to avoid audit findings, right, which is, who does what, and also have reconciliation snapshots happening between inventory comparisons, so that we can easily have follow-up sessions there. That triggers that we needed to do an integration footprint, but then the whole point was that we said, hey, if you want to work with us, you have to follow our model and our sometimes local country requirements. But still, it's a global footprint of Herbalife. So this is what we did, right? We did a global process where we would align our internal processes to be the same. So even when we go to others, that we would say, hey, this is the specification, this is what we will do, and hand in hand, we would then actually take them on a journey to bring them onto our, let's call it, platform that we have currently. Now, okay, maybe again to repeat, what we started this many years ago in 2014 already, because it evolves. You cannot do this, at once. So we had to build that standard. It was developed, with inventory controller teams, with the logistic service providers, and then we took that further. But further, we also had a few assumptions, which is that typically things like, okay, you are using your system and we are following your system, or typically we need to align transactions which are mutations, etc. So you need to do a lot of agreements on, how certain transactions will be synchronized. The last point is more, we would only do REST API JSON, what you heard in the other presentation, already since 2014. So we will never do, it's always secure messaging in supply chain, which for some logistic service provider was a challenge, right? But that's the standard. If you look at the bottom section here, you can see that these are the flows that were there. So you first need to align your master data. You talk about inbound, you talk about outbound, you talk about the different adjustments that you do, and have to align the processes that you have there. So on top of that, you need to do also alignment on business procedures, like what is a back order for you, is that a back order for me, and do I understand that that is correct, etc. Right? So a lot of procedures have to be understood, and typically for us again, our SKUs are always SKU, revision. Revision is a product, but it has a different label on it, but it's still the same product, and it has an expiration date. And that is also not always so clear for others, that you have a SKU and a revision, and that's the same SKU. That's a different concept, right? To actually go further and then align what we do. Now, okay. I don't want to go through this in detail, but this is the footprint actually. So this actually, and don't look at the middle section with all of the arrows, but in theory, when you see this, then of course in the top you see that is typically what a logistic service provider does, right? They have inbound, they have storage, they have outbound, and typically there is a fulfillment area as well, which is a pick-to-light system or another system that actually does fulfillment, and kitting, which is work in process. That's typically value-added activities that they do to make sure that we can do some WIP, work in process activities for logistics. So to make this work, right, on the left, maybe quite simple, but in the color coding, you can see that we standardized the business flows that are around the picture in the technology picture that is in the middle, right? So when you get goods, normally you get an ASN shipment first, which is, your shipment is coming, and that is a pre-alert to the WMS or the LSP that a shipment is coming, and it can come from a vendor when you buy something, or it can come from another DC, and both are captured in the flow at the bottom as one, let's call it the EDI message, that is a web service. And then you receive it from inbound, right? And now from inbound, it gets into storage. From storage, you can get, you have to understand two things. By the way, before you can receive, you have to have an item interface so that master data synchronizes, or else, and that runs every day, or else this will not work. And we have snapshots of the inventory running back to us also every day. So typically there are inventory controllers that compare stock, and if there are differences between huge lots and quantities, we can easily see that and have a discussion with the 3PLs to see what's going on. Furthermore, the other requests or the other colors are more for the other functional flows, which is, you have outbound. So the red flow for us is more business to consumer. So that's, you send an order, you pick the order and you ship the order, but that's real time because order is placed, next day delivery between 8 hours, you get a ship confirmation. And then bulk outbound, that is the blue color, which is, sending a request for a truck to pick up a shipment to make sure that it actually is going for an outbound. That is what that is. And we have also returns, so things can come back to the DC, right? So something that is not delivered could be a return shipment, right? So that is what is in that picture as well. So overall, this is the concept that we typically implement. And look at this is also optional, right? We don't have to do everything. If certain logistics providers do not do outbound, just inbound, if it is an end hub, you choose, right? You choose what to do, and then some of this can be taken out if we want, right? Like also work in process, it's not everywhere.
I have a question on that.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is, and please reconfirm my understanding, is you're using the WMS to basically manage all the inventory in every part of the supply chain with your logistics service providers, right?
Yeah, we're mirroring it back to us, but the principle is that they have the details where it is in what location itself. We have a bulk overview, which is, for us it is a quantity, but we don't know where it exactly is, but we know how much they have. So we have the consolidated view of what's happening at their place, and we bring that back to us, and they have the details, right? They know it's in receiving or it's in storage or that, but theoretically we are comparing inventory and synchronizing that, yes.
So you're using the WMS not only to the classic thing is you have a logistics provider that does warehousing for you, like a hub or something like that. But you also use it for your manufacturing plants, etc., to where the product is originated?
Yeah, but that's where this is only for the distribution centers. So in manufacturing we have WMS, but they use process manufacturing, which is where they make the products, which is internal. This is external distribution centers.
Interesting aspect, actually, because I never considered a way of a WMS acting as a control tower over the logistics process. That's a smart approach.
The thing is, you can think about that as a high level WMS. So you need to understand we're not tracking the details because this can be a box of a WMS that is internally tracking when it is our DC. We know the details of where it is, but when it's externally used, we're gonna have a high level view and have the same communication going back to us, right?
Okay.
This is for your large scale warehouse.
Yeah, this is for the
You're only using inventory. You're not using our WMS there, are you?
this
You're
is
using Oracle inventory.
if
Oracle WMS.
yeah. So if we have our own DC, the bottom section is Oracle WMS.
Oracle WMS.
If they are using the WMS, we're using standard inventory.
Right. So for the large scale, you're using Oracle inventory to track.
Yeah, the
high
buckets.
level. They use their WMS to manage, but you have other DCs where you're running Oracle WMS to manage.
Yeah, or external, right? The top section is it's
External.
it's an external, but we're using. I mean, I'm coming to the, let's call it. This is all customized, right? It's all built specifically in e-business suite at the moment. But by the way, the goal is that the standard, let's call it, connection that we have now from, we talked about cloud ERP talking to WMS, the same messaging you see between cloud ERP and WMS. The thing is, cloud ERP should expose that externally using the same business APIs or business processes. That is actually what we're planning to do here, right? Because the whole concept is, people think, maybe also to your point, WMS is internally used. Yes, okay, good. But then you deal with a lot of 3PLs, and they would like to do a service for you. But when you start to work with them, you need to map that back to, again, a standard. And they all have their own WMSs, right? So you have to bring that back to a standard.
But are there other DCs where you're actually deploying Oracle's WMS?
If they are from us, yes.
Yeah.
But not in the smaller ones. If they are medium size, then typically we don't bring in the whole WMS. There is one thing that we will sometimes bring in, which is also maybe something that I will mention a bit later, the fulfillment piece, which is this top section of a PTL, a pick-to-light system. That is too heavy for a smaller location that we have. So if we would put in WMS completely, it's good that you have LPNs, you can do task releasing, waiving, everything, but the only thing what they really need is it's a fulfillment pick to location option, which is without lights, for example, or cart picking. So for that we have also something that we're it's a custom solution at the moment, right? But there is an opportunity there, right? Because that's currently, I don't want to go into maybe the standard, but the standard which is maybe advanced inventory, that is not what this is. Fulfillment picking is, parcel picking with specific needs. And the thing is, what is specific maybe on that solution besides the integration? Things like for us, which maybe sounds strange, but shipping documents, so anything that you put into the box or anything that goes electronically in that whole omni-channel is very important, right? We email, things nowadays, right? Cubing is a discussion point, right? I know cubing is in WMS, but the real cubing algorithm is sitting in the WCS. That's where they do the real cubing, and we're using the WCS to do box calculation and create maybe multiple box orders, right? The point that is also there, which is parcel and carriers, of course, WMS has carrier information, which is basic carrier information. But for us also the missing piece is that we have carriers that need to do the last mile specific track and trace for the carriers that do business to consumer. That's why we're actually trying to see what is now the best multi-carrier platform. And OTM is quite heavy on that, or for that only. For the smaller DCs, I cannot put in OTM in all of those locations. So for the bigger DCs, yes, I can do my bulk transportation planning. But if I lose my WMS in my own location, I'm also losing, OTM is too heavy, right? So that's kind of what it is. So for the rest, of course, if Does that answer your question? Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, as you go through, I'll ask at the end.
Okay. Yeah. Furthermore, it's bottom point is more. It's very important to understand each other's flows. That's very key, and try to come up with a standard. And okay, let me maybe give an example of the players that we work with, right? And it's still expanding, and we also exchanged a few, but typically you see the bigger ones. I named the WMS systems that we talked to. I mean, we can talk to any WMS. Till now, this picture works for every WMS. Nobody, I think, said, "Hey, that you miss something." No, I don't think that is true. But the only thing here is that if you would talk to Raben, they would give their version of how to do it, and the other one would give another version. And that I know it's still a mapping, but we said, hey, we have a mapping ready, and the mapping is, the XML APIs are already exposed, so just you can absorb them and use them in the processes. And this is always changing also, because when a tendering comes, when we have to, we change logistic service providers also. It's not that we are always staying with the same one. Okay. Now, maybe just on technology, and the reason why I'm bringing up the current situation is that we are currently on 2 EBS environments. One is, let's call it core inventory EBS still, and the other one is process manufacturing. They're all using a Fusion middleware, and we do have in transportation manual processors still. That's unfortunate. For the rest, for us in the future, and we're on that journey now, which is we are definitely moving to cloud ERP. We are having a lot of custom applications, right? But we are rationalizing maybe half of those 130 internal applications that we have to less applications. The future for us is, or would be, to actually utilize the standard flows more from cloud ERP, and then actually integrate them either via an internal WMS, but then use them externally for a logistic service provider. That is kind of the goal. Of course, it will go over Oracle Integration Cloud then, and of course, it would become LSP 2.0 for us, which is a new standard that we would use in the future. And that is part of the multi-year program that we're currently doing. Okay, so if we look at, some of the things are already said, but for us it's important to make sure that we understand the align the inventory processes, which is of course key. Personally, I think the WMS integration layer is always, there are a lot of APIs, but it would be good that there is more reference there, which tells you how you can connect cloud ERP to WMS. But the thing is, you're not connecting it internally. You need to actually connect it externally, but using the same, let's call it, business framework. And that is described a bit. There is a chapter on logistic service providers, but that is, that is not what this is actually, right? That is a different topic actually. So I think, there is some opportunities there. And for the rest, we have seen also with logistic service providers that although you work maybe with, I can name Raben or Expeditors. Sometimes Raben, you work with the same Raben company, but within Raben, they have different WMSs again, right? So you work with one, let's call it integration layer, but behind the scenes, they are remapping that into WMSs that are different because of maybe acquisitions and other things again, right? even more important to stick with the standards, right? Yeah, okay, maybe on warehousing specifically, or on WMS, it's just a note, which is more for internal use, is that for picking system, we already identified that in cloud WMS, that, yeah, a WCS normally does not know inventory, right? It has no concept of inventory. It should the WMS should follow what the WCS typically does. Now, that is at the moment that is not working, and yeah, we have an open idea lab for that with Oracle, and it's a must-have because in the e-fulfillment business, people think that a WMS wave can tell a system like Schaefer or Knaap or Van der Lande what to pick. No, sorry, Van der Lande, Knaap, and those are the systems that have the technology to tell them what location it was lying in and then picked. So it's the other way around, right? And that is fulfillment technology, which actually needs to be, I think, aligned a bit better. For the rest, of course, just a few topics. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
If I could interrupt just on that point, where you talked about the WMS not controlling actually how the WCS does the picking, right?
Yeah.
That's a very valid point. So the cloud WMS does have capabilities that can do that, where it is allocating or managing more at a high level and deferring to the WCS on the actual details of it. And there are ways of doing that, and we do have customers doing that. So
yeah, it is. Yeah, we can. It is working if you put it on a pallet, then it works. But a fulfillment system, we do not do pallet picking there. It overrides the pick, yes, if it's on a pallet. But the fulfillment system, that's with, it's a fulfillment system, right? It does not have a pallet. So it works with it when it's on an LPN. And it needs to work as a loose quantity. And then it's not allowing to get a pick back from a legacy system. That's maybe more specific for you. But that's the idea lab actually. Furthermore, at the bottom, think concepts like, okay, we're switching from e-business suite to, of course, cloud WMS, but the concept that I know that, okay, everything is hard reserved, right, in ERP cloud nowadays, right? In EBS, I can do auto allocate now, which is a soft reservation, and update it even later when I do my pick confirm, because that's when the move order actually gets updated. That's not possible in cloud ERP anymore because it's a hard reservation, right? And the WMS is more following, or it has to pick that quantity. Now, of course, with that other thing that I said, that it can follow the picks as we requested, then it is a different mindset. People are used to think that we can update allocation, but ERP cloud is more strict in that. And the transportation thing at the bottom is more that the different use cases we have for the different last mile carriers actually that we have, right, which is specific to our business. Okay, so more summary and takeaways. I hope you got an understanding a bit about our supply chain. It was key for me to explain our global footprint here and maybe create awareness why not only an internal WMS is important, but also that you need to think about, if you work with logistics service providers, that you need to align with one standard, and that everything is about, of course, inventory concepts and functional aspects. And last, of course, I think there is an opportunity to have a better standardization in cloud ERP and WMS in the future to make this work better. And that's the summary, right? So, any questions or points?